Janelle Carter, a hard-working single mother, never expected her life to change when she brought her son Micah to work. But when Micah ran to her billionaire boss, Graham Kensington, and called him Daddy, everything shifted in ways she never imagined. What would you do if your child mistook your powerful boss for their father? Before we get into this heartwarming and unexpected journey, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The alarm buzzed loudly, and Janelle Carter's hand shot out from under the covers to silence it. 5:30 in the morning again. She allowed herself just 10 seconds to close her eyes before forcing herself to sit up. The small apartment was quiet, except for the soft sound of her son Micah's breathing from the room next door. Every morning was the same routine: shower, dress, prepare breakfast, pack lunch, and wake Micah. As she stood in front of her closet, Janelle chose her usual work attire: a simple black skirt, white blouse, and the only pair of decent heels she owned. She couldn't afford to look anything less than professional as the executive assistant to Graham Kensington, one of the most demanding bosses in New York City. "Micah, honey, time to wake up," she called, gently shaking her 5-year-old son. His curly hair was wild against the pillow, and he blinked up at her with those big brown eyes that melted her heart every time. "5 more minutes, Mommy," he mumbled, pulling the covers over his head. Janelle smiled despite her exhaustion. "Not today, sweetie. Mrs. Jenkins is expecting you early, remember?" Mrs. Jenkins was their elderly neighbor who watched Micah before school and after. Without her, Janelle didn't know how she'd manage to keep her job. The pay was good, better than anything else she could hope for with her qualifications, but the hours were long, and Graham Kensington expected nothing less than perfection. By 7 o'clock, they were out the door. Janelle dropped Micah off at Mrs. Jenkins' apartment, kissing him goodbye. "Be good today, okay? I'll pick you up after work." "I love you, Mommy," Micah said, hugging her tightly around the waist. "I love you more," she replied, their usual morning exchange. The subway was crowded, as always, and Janelle held onto the handrail, mentally going through the day's schedule. Mr. Kensington had 3 important meetings, and she needed to prepare all the presentations and briefing notes. Her phone buzzed in her purse. A text message from Mrs. Jenkins made her heart sink. "Sorry, Janelle. I've fallen and hurt my hip. Going to hospital. Can't watch Micah today." Janelle felt panic rising in her chest. She quickly texted back, asking if Mrs. Jenkins was okay and if she needed anything. Then reality hit her. What was she going to do with Micah? School didn't start until next week, and she had no family in the city. Her friends all worked during the day. She got off at her stop and called her backup sitter, Lisa, but there was no answer. She tried another and another. No one was available on such short notice. By the time she reached the towering glass building, where Kensington Enterprises occupied the top 10 floors, Janelle had made the only decision she could. She'd have to bring Micah to work. She texted Mrs. Jenkins, asking if she could drop Micah off at the apartment to pick up his backpack with his books and toys. Mrs. Jenkins's grandson replied that he was taking his grandmother to the hospital, but would let Janelle in. An hour later, Janelle hurried through the lobby of Kensington Enterprises, holding Micah's hand tightly. She'd wasted precious morning preparation time getting him, and now she was running late. She prayed that Mr. Kensington would be delayed in traffic. "Remember what I told you, Micah. You need to be very quiet and just color or read your books. This is Mommy's workplace, and it's very important." Micah nodded solemnly. "I'll be good, Mommy. I promise." The elevator doors opened to the executive floor, and Janelle quickly led Micah to her desk, situated just outside Graham Kensington's large corner office. She set up a small space for him with coloring books, a tablet with headphones, and some snacks. "Miss Carter, you're late," came a voice from behind her. Karen Phillips, the office manager, stood there with her arms crossed, eyeing Micah suspiciously. "And who is this?" "This is my son, Micah. My babysitter had an emergency and I had no other options. He'll be very quiet, I promise. He won't disturb anyone." Karen's thin lips pressed together in disapproval. "You know the company policy on children in the workplace. Mr. Kensington won't be pleased." "I know, but Mr. Kensington will be here in 15 minutes. The Anderson file needs to be ready and he'll want his coffee waiting." Janelle nodded, her heart racing. "I'll take care of it right away." Karen walked away, but not before giving Micah another disapproving look. Janelle knelt beside her son. "Sweetie, I need to prepare some things. Just stay right here and color, okay? Don't leave this spot." "Okay, Mommy," Micah said, already opening his coloring book. Janelle rushed to get everything ready. She prepared the Anderson file, printed the meeting notes, and hurried to the break room to make Graham's coffee. Black with 1 sugar, exactly how he liked it. By the time the elevator dinged announcing his arrival, she was back at her desk, coffee in hand. Graham Kensington stepped off the elevator, looking every bit the powerful CEO he was. Tall and imposing in his perfectly tailored dark blue suit, he had piercing blue eyes that seemed to notice every detail and find every flaw. At 42, his dark hair was just beginning to gray at the temples, giving him a distinguished look that commanded respect. The office fell silent, as it always did when he arrived. Everyone straightened a little, worked a little faster. Janelle stood up, holding his coffee and the Anderson file. "Good morning, Mr. Kensington," she said, trying to sound normal despite her anxiety. "Here's your coffee and the file for the 10 o'clock meeting." Graham barely nodded as he took both. His eyes flicked to her desk, where Micah sat quietly coloring. "Who is that?" he asked, his voice cool. Before Janelle could answer, something unexpected happened. Micah looked up, his eyes widening. He dropped his crayon and stood up, a huge smile spreading across his face. "Daddy!" he exclaimed, running toward Graham with arms outstretched. The entire office seemed to freeze. Karen gasped. Someone dropped a stack of papers. Janelle felt all the blood drain from her face as her son wrapped his small arms around Graham Kensington's waist and looked up at him with pure joy. "Micah!" Janelle rushed forward, mortified. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Kensington. I don't know why he—" But something strange was happening. Graham hadn't pushed Micah away. Instead, he was staring down at the little boy with an expression Janelle had never seen before. Confusion mixed with something else, something softer than she'd ever witnessed on his usually stern face. Graham set his coffee and the file on Janelle's desk and, to everyone's shock, knelt down to Micah's level. "Why did you call me that?" he asked, his voice gentler than anyone in the office had ever heard it. Micah, completely unfazed by the tension around him, simply shrugged and smiled. "You look like my daddy in my dreams." The silence in the office was deafening. Janelle wanted to disappear. She'd surely be fired now. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Kensington," she said, reaching for Micah. "My regular sitter had an emergency, and I had nowhere else to take him. I promise it won't happen again." Graham stood up slowly, his eyes moving from Micah to Janelle, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. How long had she worked for him? 3 years? And yet he realized he knew almost nothing about her personal life. "You have a son," he said, stating the obvious. "Yes, sir." "He's 5. Graham looked around, suddenly aware of the entire office watching them. His expression hardened. Again. "In my office, Ms. Carter," he said, picking up his coffee and file. "Bring your son." Janelle's heart pounded as she took Micah's hand and followed Graham into his expansive corner office. The glass walls offered no privacy from the curious eyes of her co-workers. Graham closed the door behind them and walked to his desk. "Sir, I can explain—" "You're a single mother," he said, not a question but a statement. "Yes, sir." Graham studied Micah, who was now looking around the office with interest. "You have a big office," Micah said, apparently unaware of the tension. "My mom says you're very important." Something flickered across Graham's face. Surprise, perhaps. "Does she?" Janelle's cheeks burned. "Mr. Kensington, please, I had no choice today. It won't happen again, I promise." Graham sat down in his leather chair and leaned back, still looking at Micah rather than at her. "Where's his father?" The question caught her off guard. He's not in the picture, sir." "Never has been," she wanted to add, but didn't. Micah's father had disappeared as soon as she told him she was pregnant, wanting nothing to do with the responsibility of a child. Graham nodded, then finally looked at her. "I have a conference room not being used today. He can stay there while you work." Janelle blinked, not sure she'd heard correctly. "You're not firing me? For having a childcare emergency?" "No, Ms. Carter. Contrary to office gossip, I'm not. Completely heartless. There was a slight edge to his voice. However, I expect this will be a one-time occurrence. Of course, sir, thank you. The Anderson meeting is in an hour. I need those projections finalized. I'll have them ready, sir. Graham turned his attention to his computer, a clear dismissal. Janelle took Micah's hand and started toward the door. Ms. Carter, Graham called, stopping her. What's his name again? Micah, sir. Graham looked at the boy once more, his expression unreadable. Micah, he repeated softly. Then his face hardened again as he turned back to his work. That will be all. Janelle set Micah up in the small conference room with his books and tablet, making sure he had snacks and water. Be good. Okay, Mommy has to work. Is that man really not my daddy? Micah asked, his voice small. Janelle's heart ached. No, sweetie. That's my boss, Mr. Kensington. But he looks like the daddy in my dreams, Micah insisted. Janelle didn't know what to say to that. Micah had never even seen a picture of his real father. Sometimes dreams are just dreams, honey. You stay here and be good, and maybe we can get ice cream after work. The promise of ice cream brightened Micah's mood immediately, and Janelle returned to her desk, still shaken by the morning's events. To her surprise, Karen approached almost immediately. I can't believe he didn't fire you on the spot, she said, glancing toward Graham's office. I've never seen him act like that before. Like what? Like human. Karen shook her head. Just don't push your luck. Get those projections done. Throughout the morning, Janelle checked on Micah regularly while trying to keep up with her work. She noticed Graham watching her through the glass walls of his office more than once, his expression thoughtful. When she brought the finished projections to him, he barely looked at her, but as she turned to leave, he spoke. How do you do it, Ms. Carter? She turned back. Do what, sir? All of this, working these hours, raising a child alone. The question seemed genuine, not judgmental. Janelle shrugged slightly. I don't have a choice, sir. Micah is my responsibility, my priority. Graham nodded, his eyes meeting hers. Your dedication is admirable. The compliment, if that's what it was, surprised. Thank you, sir. Bring him to the staff lunch today, Graham said suddenly. There's always too much food anyway. Before Janelle could respond, his phone rang, and he turned away to answer it. She left his office, puzzled by his behavior. The staff lunch was held in the large conference room every Friday. It was usually a tense affair, with Graham sitting at the head of the table barely speaking as everyone ate in awkward silence. Today, Janelle brought Micah in, holding his hand tightly and feeling everyone's eyes on them. Sit here, sweetie, she said, placing him in a chair next to hers as far from Graham as possible. But as the food was being served, Graham surprised everyone by standing up. Everyone, this is Micah, Miss Carter's son. He's joining us today due to special circumstances. The room fell silent as Graham walked around the table to where Micah sat. He knelt down again, meeting the boy's eyes. I understand you like ice cream, he said. Micah's eyes widened. Yes, Mommy said we might get some after work. Graham actually smiled. A small, tight smile, but a smile nonetheless. Several employees exchanged shocked glances. What's your favorite flavor? Graham asked. Chocolate. Chip? Micah answered enthusiastically. Mine too, Graham said, then stood and returned to his seat, acting as if the exchange had never happened. Throughout lunch, Janelle noticed Graham watching Micah, the way he laughed, the way he carefully ate his food, the way he whispered questions to his mother. There was something in Graham's eyes she couldn't quite identify, something that made her uneasy and curious at the same time. After lunch, as everyone filed out, Graham stopped Janelle at the door. Miss Carter, a word. She told Micah to wait just outside and turned to face her boss, bracing herself. Is everything okay, sir? Graham hesitated, something she'd never seen him do before. Your son, he seems like a good kid. He is, she said, feeling a rush of pride despite her nervousness. You've never mentioned him before. You've never asked, sir, she replied before she could stop herself. To her surprise, Graham nodded, accepting the gentle rebuke. Fair enough. He paused. Do you need to leave early today? To take him for ice cream? Janelle stared at him, completely thrown off balance by this new side of him. I can finish all my work first, sir. It's Friday, Miss Carter. The weekend reports can wait until Monday for once. Thank you, sir, that's very kind. Graham's expression shifted back to his usual business-like demeanor. I expect you here early on Monday to make up for today. Of course, sir. As Janelle turned to leave, Graham spoke again. Miss Carter, she looked back at him. He has your eyes. The simple observation, delivered in Graham's usual matter-of-fact tone, caught her off guard. Before she could respond, he had already turned away, ending the conversation. Outside, Micah was waiting patiently. Can we go for ice cream now, Mummy? Yes, sweetie, Mr. Kensington said we can leave early today. Micah beamed. I like him. He's nice. He's not usually, Janelle began, then stopped herself. Yes, he was nice today. As they walked toward the elevator, Janelle felt Graham's eyes on them through the glass walls of the conference room. When she glanced back, their eyes met briefly before he looked away. That evening, as Janelle tucked Micah into bed, he asked a question that made her heart skip a beat. Oh, will I see Mr. Kensington again, Mummy? He's my boss, sweetie. You'll probably see him sometimes. Micah yawned, his eyes heavy with sleep. Good. In my dream, he makes you smile a lot. Janelle kissed his forehead, brushing back his curls. It's just a dream, Micah. Real life is different. But as she turned off the light and closed his door, something stirred inside her, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. She pushed it away immediately. Graham Kensington was her boss, a powerful, wealthy man who lived in a world completely different from hers. Today had been an anomaly, nothing more. Still, as she sat alone in her small living room, she couldn't help but remember the way he had looked at Micah, the gentleness in his voice when he spoke to him. For a fleeting moment, she had glimpsed something in Graham Kensington that no one at the office had ever seen before, a glimpse of the man behind the intimidating facade. Little did she know, across town in his luxurious penthouse apartment, Graham Kensington stood at his window, looking out at the city lights, thinking about a little boy with curly hair who had called him Daddy, and the mother who had somehow managed to remain invisible to him for 3 years, despite seeing her every day. Something had changed today, though neither of them realized just how significant that change would be. Monday morning came too quickly for Janelle. After spending the weekend at the park with Micah and catching up on laundry, she was back at her desk before 7, determined to prove to Mr. Kensington that Friday had been a one-time situation that wouldn't affect her work. Mrs. Jenkins had called on Sunday to say she was home from the hospital. Her hip wasn't broken, just badly bruised, and she would be able to watch Micah again starting Tuesday. For Monday, Janelle had managed to convince Lisa, her backup sitter, to take Micah for the day. Ms. Carter, Graham's deep voice startled her. He stood by her desk, his usual cup of coffee already in his hand. You're early. Yes, sir, as you requested. He nodded, his face unreadable. The Reynolds contract needs revisions before the 9 o'clock call. I'll have it ready in 20 minutes, she said, opening the file on her computer. Graham hesitated, something he rarely did. How is your son today? The question caught her off guard. Micah is fine, thank you. He's with a sitter. Good, Graham said, then paused again. He's quite a remarkable child. Before Janelle could respond, Graham walked into his office and closed the door, leaving her staring after him in confusion. In 3 years, he had never once asked about her personal life. Throughout the morning, Janelle caught Graham watching her through the glass walls of his office. Whenever their eyes met, he quickly looked away, focusing on his computer or papers. It made her nervous, wondering if he was reconsidering her position at the company after Friday's incident. At noon, Graham emerged from his office. Miss Carter, join me for lunch. It wasn't a request but a command. Confused, Janelle grabbed her notepad, assuming this was a business lunch to discuss the upcoming charity event the company was sponsoring. Where are we meeting the client, sir? She asked, standing up. No client, just us. Graham was already walking toward the elevator, not looking back to see if she was following. They rode down in awkward silence. Janelle's mind raced with possibilities. Was he taking her somewhere private to fire her? Had she made some mistake in the Reynolds contract? To her surprise, Graham led her to a small cafe across the street from their building, not the upscale restaurant where he usually held business meetings. They sat at a table by the window, and Graham ordered coffee for both of them without asking what she wanted. "Sir, if this is about Friday," Janelle began. "How long have you been a single mother?" Graham interrupted, his eyes studying her face. Janelle blinked at the personal question. "Since before Micah was born, 5.5 years. And his father?" Janelle shifted uncomfortably. "He left when I told him I was pregnant. I haven't heard from him since." Graham's jaw tightened. "Does he provide any support?" "No, sir." "And you've never pursued legal action?" Janelle straightened her shoulders. "With all due respect, Mr. Kensington, why are you asking me these questions?" Graham sat back, seeming to realize he'd overstepped. "I apologize. It's just, I've never seen such a bond between mother and child before. It's intriguing." "Micah is my world," Janelle said simply. Their food arrived, sandwiches that Graham had ordered without consulting her. As they ate, Graham continued his questions, asking about Micah's school, his interests, their living situation. Janelle answered cautiously, still confused by his sudden interest in her life. "You've worked for me for 3 years," Graham said suddenly, "and I knew nothing about you having a son." "You never asked, sir," Janelle repeated her words from Friday. Graham nodded slowly. "You're right, I didn't." He took a sip of his coffee. "You're very good at your job, Miss Carter." "Thank you, sir. But I'm beginning to realize I've been inconsiderate of your personal obligations." Janelle didn't know how to respond to that. Graham Kensington was known for being demanding and unyielding. Everyone in the company worked long hours because he did. The idea that he would suddenly care about work-life balance was shocking. "I'd like to make some adjustments to your schedule," Graham continued. "You should be able to leave by 5 most days to be with your son." "Sir, I don't need special treatment." "It's not special treatment, Miss Carter. It's basic decency." There was an edge to his voice. "I've been reflecting on how I run my company. Perhaps some changes are overdue." Back at the office, word spread quickly that Graham had taken Janelle to lunch. Karen cornered her in the break room that afternoon. "What happened? What did he want?" she demanded. "Nothing," Janelle said, uncomfortable with the attention. "We just discussed some scheduling issues." Karen looked skeptical. "In 3 years, I've never seen him take an employee to lunch unless it was a business meeting." "It was nothing," Janelle insisted, walking back to her desk. But it wasn't nothing, and Janelle knew it. Something had changed on Friday when Micah had called Graham Daddy. She just couldn't figure out what it meant or why. At exactly 5 o'clock, Graham emerged from his office and stopped at her desk. "You can go now, Miss Carter. The rest can wait until tomorrow." "Thank you, sir, but I can finish these reports." "Go home to your son," Graham said, his voice softer than usual. "That's an order." Janelle gathered her things, still confused by his behavior, but grateful for the chance to pick Micah up early from Lisa's. The next morning, a large gift basket sat on her desk when she arrived. Inside were children's books, art supplies, and a small stuffed bear. "What is this?" she asked Karen, who was eyeing the basket enviously. "It was delivered this morning. There's a card." Janelle opened the small envelope and read the note. "For Micah. I hope he enjoys these. GK." Her hands trembled slightly as she put the card back. Graham hadn't arrived yet, and Janelle didn't know whether to thank him or return the gifts. It seemed highly inappropriate for her boss to be buying presents for her son. When Graham finally arrived, he walked straight to his office without even glancing at her desk. Janelle waited an hour before knocking on his door. "Come in," he called. "Mr. Kensington, about the gift basket." "Did I overstep?" he asked immediately, looking up from his computer. "It's very generous, but it's just a small token. I remembered Micah likes to draw." Graham's voice was matter-of-fact, as if buying gifts for employees' children was something he did regularly. "It's too much, sir. I can't accept it." Graham frowned. "Why not?" Because it's not appropriate. You're my boss." Graham studied her for a moment. "Is that the only reason?" The question hung in the air between them. Janelle felt her cheeks grow warm under his intense gaze. "What other reason would there be, sir?" Graham stood up and walked around his desk, leaning against it just a few feet from where she stood. "I don't know, Miss Carter. You tell me why a simple gift for a child has you so uncomfortable." Janelle struggled to find the right words. "People might misinterpret your intentions." "And what are my intentions exactly?" Graham asked, his blue eyes fixed on hers. "I don't know, sir, that's what concerns me." Something flickered across Graham's face. Frustration, perhaps, or disappointment. He pushed away from the desk and returned to his chair. "The gift is for Micah. Nothing more, nothing less. If it makes you uncomfortable, I won't do it again." Janelle nodded, relieved. "Thank you for understanding, sir." As she turned to leave, Graham spoke again. "Ms. Carter, do you ever call me anything besides Sir or Mr. Kensington?" The question caught her off guard. "No, sir. I have a first name, you know." Janelle didn't know how to respond to that. In 3 years, she had never once called him Graham. It would have felt too personal, too familiar. "I know, Mr. Kensington." Graham sighed. "That will be all, Ms. Carter." The rest of the week passed in a strange new routine. Graham continued to insist that Janelle leave at 5 each day, and their interactions had a new layer of awkwardness that hadn't been there before. Janelle caught him watching her more often, his expression thoughtful and sometimes troubled. On Friday afternoon, Graham stopped at her desk. "How is Micah enjoying the books?" Janelle smiled despite herself. "He loves them. He made me read the Dinosaur one 3 times last night." A small smile tugged at Graham's lips. "Good, I thought he might like that one." "How did you know he likes dinosaurs?" Janelle asked, suddenly curious. "He told me," Graham said, "during lunch last Friday. You were getting him more juice, and he informed me that T-Rex was his favorite, but that velociraptors were super cool, too." The fact that Graham had not only talked to Micah, but remembered the conversation in such detail surprised Janelle. She was used to Graham barely acknowledging people unless he needed something from them. "Well, thank you again. It was very thoughtful." Graham nodded, then hesitated. "Miss Carter," Janelle. It was the first time he had ever used her first name, and it startled her. "Yes, sir." "Would you and Micah like to join me for lunch tomorrow? There's a new children's museum downtown that I've heard is quite good." Janelle stared at him, completely caught off guard by the invitation. "You want to spend your Saturday with us?" "If that would be acceptable, yes." "Why?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Graham looked uncomfortable for the first time. "Because He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "Because I enjoyed meeting Micah, and I'd like to get to know him and you better. Mr. Kensington, I don't think." "Graham," he interrupted. "Please just call me Graham." Janelle felt her heart beating faster. This was crossing a line she had never expected to cross with her boss. "I don't think it's a good idea, sir. People would talk." "Let them," Graham said, a hint of his usual commanding tone returning. "I'm not asking you on a date, Miss Carter. I'm simply inviting you and your son to lunch and a museum." "But why?" Janelle pressed, needing to understand what was happening. Graham ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd seen many times in business meetings. "Because when Micah called me Daddy last week, something changed. I can't explain it, but I felt, I don't know, something I haven't felt in a very long time." Janelle didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to say yes. Micah would love the museum, and he had been asking about Mr. Bossman all week. But another part of her was afraid, not of Graham, but of what this might mean, how it might complicate her carefully structured life. "I need to think about it," she finally said. Graham nodded. "Of course. Let me know by this evening." That night, after Micah was asleep, Janelle sat on her small balcony, mulling over Graham's invitation. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Graham Kensington. Take your time deciding, no pressure. But I hope you'll say yes." Janelle stared at the message, wondering how he had gotten her personal number. Probably from her employee file, she realized. The fact that he had gone to the trouble of finding it showed how serious he was about the invitation. She thought about Micah and how excited he would be to go to the museum. And if she was honest with herself, she was curious about this new side of Graham she was seeing. After a long internal debate, she finally texted back, "We would be happy to join you tomorrow. Thank you for the invitation." Janelle sighed. "Well, Graham's response came immediately. "Excellent. I'll pick you up at 11. Janelle sent him her address, then sat staring at her phone, wondering if she had just made a huge mistake. Graham Kensington was her boss, a powerful, wealthy man known for his ruthlessness in business. What could he possibly want with her and Micah? The next morning, Janelle was a bundle of nerves as she helped Micah get dressed. "Are we really going to see Mr. Bossman?" Micah asked excitedly. "His name is Mr. Kensington, and yes, he's taking us to the new Children's Museum." "Why?" Micah asked, echoing the question that had been keeping Janelle awake all night. "Because he wants to be our friend," she said, the simplest explanation she could think of. At exactly 11 o'clock, there was a knock at their apartment door. Janelle took a deep breath before opening it. Graham stood there in jeans and a casual button-down shirt, a far cry from his usual tailored suits. He looked younger, more approachable. "Hi," he said, seeming almost nervous. "Hello, sir. Graham." Janelle corrected herself. "Mr. Bossman," Micah exclaimed, running up to stand beside his mother. "Are we going to see dinosaurs?" Graham smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually serious face. "We definitely are, and robots, and a space station, and lots of other cool things." Micah beamed up at him. "Can I hold your hand when we cross the street? Mommy says I always have to hold a grown-up's hand." Graham looked to Janelle, seeking permission. She nodded slightly. "I would be honored to hold your hand, Micah," Graham said solemnly. On the way down to Graham's car, a sleek black SUV, not the sports car Janelle had expected, Micah chattered excitedly about dinosaurs, robots, and his friend Tyler, who had been to the museum already. Graham listened attentively, asking questions and seeming genuinely interested in Micah's answers. Janelle watched them, amazed at the transformation in her boss. At work, Graham was intimidating, often impatient with those who couldn't keep up with his quick mind. But with Micah, he was patient and engaged, smiling at the boy's enthusiasm. At the museum, Micah was in heaven, running from exhibit to exhibit with boundless energy. Graham stayed right with him, explaining how things worked, helping him reach buttons that were too high, and seeming to enjoy the experience as much as Micah did. Janelle followed them, watching in wonder. At one point, Micah grabbed both their hands as they walked to the next exhibit, swinging happily between them. For a brief moment, they looked like any normal family enjoying a Saturday together. The thought startled Janelle, and she gently pulled her hand away, using the excuse of checking her phone. She caught Graham looking at her, an unreadable expression on his face. After several hours at the museum, they had lunch at a nearby restaurant that catered to families, with a play area where Micah could burn off energy while they waited for their food. "He's an amazing kid," Graham said, watching Micah climb on the play structure. "You've done an incredible job raising him." "Thank you," Janelle said, still trying to reconcile this Graham with the boss she knew. "It hasn't been easy, but he's worth everything." "His father is a fool," Graham said, a hard edge entering his voice. "To walk away from his own child like that?" Janelle shrugged, uncomfortable with the topic. It was for the best, really. He wasn't ready to be a father, and Micah deserves better than someone who resents him. "Like a father who sees him in his dreams?" Graham asked quietly. Janelle met his eyes, trying to understand what was happening between them. "Why are you doing this, Graham? Why the sudden interest in us?" Graham looked away, watching Micah again. "I'm not sure I can explain it rationally. When Micah called me Daddy that day, it hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. It made me realize how empty my life is. You have a successful company, a penthouse apartment, probably more money than you know what to do with," Janelle pointed out. "And no one to share it with," Graham replied. "No one who sees me as anything more than a boss or a business partner. No one who runs to me with a smile like that." He nodded toward Micah, who was waving at them from the top of the slide. Janelle waved back at her son, her heart conflicted. "So what is this? Some kind of midlife crisis where you suddenly want a ready-made family?" Graham winced at her sharp tone. "That's not fair, isn't it? You've shown zero interest in me or my life for 3 years, Graham. Then Micah calls you Daddy, and suddenly you're buying him gifts and taking us to museums. What am I supposed to think?" Graham's jaw tightened, his businessman's mask sliding back into place. I apologize if I've made you uncomfortable. That wasn't my intention. What was your intention? Janelle pressed. Before Graham could answer, Micah ran back to the table, breathless and happy. Can we get ice cream after lunch? Please, Mommy. Please, Mr. Graham. The tension between the adults dissolved at Micah's excitement. Graham smiled at him. If your mom says it's okay, then absolutely. Micah turned his pleading eyes to Janelle, who couldn't help but smile. I suppose we can. The rest of the afternoon passed pleasantly, though there was now an undercurrent of tension between Janelle and Graham. When Graham dropped them off at their apartment building, Micah hugged him tightly. Thank you for the best day ever, Mr. Graham. Graham hugged him back, his expression softening. You're very welcome, Micah. I had fun too. Janelle stood awkwardly by the door. Thank you for today. It was nice. Graham nodded, his eyes meeting hers. We should do it again sometime. I don't know if that's a good idea, Janelle said quietly, so Micah couldn't hear. Graham stepped closer to her. Janelle, I know this is strange and sudden. I don't fully understand it myself, but there's something here, something real. I'd like to explore it if you're willing. Janelle looked at him, torn between caution and the undeniable attraction she felt toward this new, gentler version of her boss. I need time to think. Of course, Graham said. Take all the time you need. As they rode the elevator up to their apartment, Micah looked up at Janelle with a serious expression. I like Mr. Graham, Mummy. He's nice. Yes, he is, Janelle agreed. Surprised to realize she meant it. Can we see him again? Micah asked hopefully. Janelle smoothed her son's curly hair. Maybe, sweetie. We'll see. That night, long after Micah was asleep, Janelle's phone buzzed with another text from Graham. Thank you for today. Regardless of what you decide about us, I want you to know that I think you're remarkable. The way you care for Micah, the way you balance everything, it's incredible. You deserve more credit than I've given you. Janelle read the message several times, her heart racing. She didn't know what to think or how to feel. Graham Kensington had been just her demanding boss for 3 years, someone she respected but also feared a little. Now suddenly he was texting her at night, complimenting her parenting, taking them to museums. What would happen if she let him into their lives? Would he eventually lose interest and walk away, leaving Micah heartbroken? Or was there really something genuine happening? Here. Janelle fell asleep with these questions swirling in her mind, unaware that across town Graham Kensington was sitting in his empty penthouse, looking at pictures he had taken that day of Micah laughing on the slides and Janelle smiling, despite herself. For the first time in years, his home felt too quiet, too empty. And for the first time since Micah had called him Daddy, Graham allowed himself to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the little boy's dreams had been trying to tell them all something important. Monday morning came with a new sense of awkwardness for Janelle. She hadn't responded to Graham's text message from Saturday night, unsure what to say. As she rode the elevator up to the office, she wondered how they would act around each other after spending Saturday together. To her surprise, Graham wasn't at the office when she arrived. Karen approached her desk almost immediately. Mr. Kensington called. He'll be in late today. He wants you to reschedule his morning appointments. Janelle nodded, relieved to have a little more time to prepare herself. As she worked on rearranging Graham's schedule, her phone buzzed with a text. Sorry for the late notice, had some things to take care of. See you soon. G. The casual tone of the message made Janelle uncomfortable. This wasn't how a boss typically communicated with his assistant. She put her phone away without responding, focusing on her work instead. When Graham finally arrived at 11, he walked straight to her desk rather than heading to his office. Good morning, Janelle, he said, using her first name right in front of everyone. Good morning, Mr. Kensington, she replied pointedly, aware of Karen watching them. I've rescheduled your appointments. The Westfield call is at 1 now. If Graham noticed her deliberate use of his formal name, he didn't show it. Instead, he placed a small paper bag on her desk. Croissants from that bakery near your apartment. I thought you might like one. Janelle stared at the bag, then at Graham. Thank you, she said stiffly. That wasn't necessary. Graham leaned closer, lowering his voice. We need to talk. Lunch in my office?" Before she could respond, he walked away, leaving her with the paper bag and several curious stares from her co-workers. By lunchtime, rumors were swirling around the office. Janelle kept her head down, ignoring the whispers and speculative glances. At precisely noon, Graham emerged from his office. "Ms. Carter, shall we?" he said, holding his door open for her. With a sinking feeling, Janelle grabbed her notepad and pen, then followed him into his office. Graham closed the door behind her, then walked to his desk, where 2 sandwiches and drinks were already set up on a small side table. "I ordered lunch," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I hope you don't mind." "Mr. Kensington, we need to be clear about something," Janelle said, remaining standing. "I appreciate the day at the museum with Micah, but this," she gestured to, "the lunch needs to stop." Graham frowned. "Why?" "Because you're my boss," Janelle said firmly. "People are already talking." "Let them talk," Graham said dismissively. "That's easy for you to say," Janelle replied, her voice rising slightly. "You're the boss, I'm just an assistant. Do you have any idea what this looks like?" Graham's expression hardened. "Like what exactly?" "Like I'm sleeping with my boss to get special treatment," Janelle said bluntly. Graham looked genuinely shocked. "That's not— It doesn't matter what it is. It matters what it looks like," Janelle interrupted. "I need this job, Graham. I have a child to support." Graham ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Janelle now recognized as a sign of frustration. "Your job is not in jeopardy. It never was." "Then what is this?" Janelle asked, gesturing between them. "What are we doing here?" Graham was quiet for a moment, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "All I know is that since meeting Micah, since seeing you with him, I can't stop thinking about both of you." "Why?" Janelle pressed. Graham looked away out the window at the city skyline. "My father was never around when I was growing up," he said quietly. "He was too busy building his company. My mother raised me and my sister mostly on her own, even though they were still married." Janelle hadn't known Graham had a sister. In fact, she realized she knew almost nothing about his personal life. "When I took over the company after his death," Graham continued, "I promised myself I'd do things differently. But somewhere along the way, I became just like him." He turned back to Janelle. "Seeing you with Micah, the way you balance everything, the way you put him first, it made me realize what I've been missing." "So this is about you wanting a family?" Janelle asked carefully. "It's about me wanting to know you, both of you, better," Graham corrected. "I understand your concerns about the workplace, and you're right. So I have a proposal." Janelle waited, wary. "I'm creating a new position in the company, Director of Executive Communications. The job would involve overseeing all communication from the executive team, working directly with the board, and managing some of our most sensitive client relationships. The salary is double what you're making now." Janelle's eyes widened. "And you're offering this to me?" "You're qualified," Graham said simply. "You've been handling most of those duties anyway, just without the title or compensation. This makes it official and puts you on the executive team, which means you wouldn't be my direct supervisor anymore," Janelle said, seeing where this was going. Graham nodded. "Exactly." Janelle sat down, trying to process this. "Is this position real, or did you just make it up to solve our situation?" "It's real," Graham assured her. "I've been thinking about restructuring the executive team for months. This just gave me the push to finally do it." He paused. "But I won't lie to you, the timing is because of what's happening between us." "And what exactly is happening between us?" Janelle asked, looking him directly in the eye. "I don't know yet," Graham admitted, "but I'd like the chance to find out, without the complications of being your boss." Janelle thought about it. The promotion would be life-changing. The extra money would mean she could move to a better apartment, maybe even start saving for Micah's college fund. But was it worth the risk? What if things don't work out between us?" she asked cautiously. "The job is yours regardless," Graham said firmly. "What happens or doesn't happen between us, personally, won't affect your position in the company. I'll put that in writing if it makes you feel better." Janelle studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. All she saw was sincerity and something else. Vulnerability, perhaps. "I need time to think about it," she said finally. Graham nodded. Take all the time you need, but Janelle... Yes? Micah asked me a question on Saturday when you were in the restroom at the museum. He asked if I could be his friend because he doesn't have a dad. Graham's voice was soft. I told him I'd be honored to be his friend. I meant it. Janelle felt tears spring to her eyes unexpectedly. Micah had never mentioned wanting a father before, but of course he thought about it. What child wouldn't? I should get back to work, she said, standing up quickly and heading for the door. Janelle, Graham called after her, for what it's worth, I understand your caution. You're protecting Micah, and that's what makes you such a good mother. I respect that more than you know. Back at her desk, Janelle tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting to Graham's offer and his words about Micah. By the end of the day, she had made her decision. She knocked on Graham's office door just as he was preparing to leave. Come in, he called. Janelle entered, closing the door behind her. I'll take the job, she said without preamble, but I need everything. In writing, including the guarantee that my position won't be affected by whatever happens or doesn't happen between us personally. Graham's face lit up with a rare smile. Of course, I'll have HR draw up the paperwork tomorrow. And as for the personal side of things, Janelle continued, I think we should take it very slow for Micah's sake. I agree completely, Graham said. We can start with dinner this weekend, just the three of us? Janelle nodded. That would be nice. As she turned to leave, Graham spoke again. Janelle, thank you for giving this a chance. She gave him a small smile. Don't make me regret it. When Janelle picked up Micah from Mrs. Jenkins' apartment that evening, he was full of questions about Mr. Graham and when they would see him again. Actually, he invited us to dinner this weekend, Janelle told him. Micah's face lit up with excitement. Really? Can we go to a restaurant with a playground again? Janelle laughed. We'll see. Mr. Graham might have somewhere else in mind. I like him, Mommy, Micah said simply. He listens to me, not like Tyler's dad, who's always on his phone. The innocent observation made Janelle pause. It was true. Graham had given Micah his full attention on Saturday, listening to his stories and answering his endless questions with patience. It was a side of Graham she never would have imagined existed before. The next day, Janelle was called to the HR department first thing in the morning. The director, a woman named Patricia, showed her the paperwork for her new position. This is quite a jump, Janelle, Patricia commented. Mr. Kensington must be very impressed with your work. I've been handling most of these responsibilities already, Janelle said, repeating Graham's words. Patricia nodded, but her expression remained skeptical. There's something else, she said, pushing another document across the desk. Mr. Kensington asked me to draw this up. It's unusual. Janelle looked at the paper. It was an agreement stating that her position and compensation would not be affected by any personal relationship or lack thereof with Graham Kensington. He's being very thorough, Patricia noted, watching Janelle's reaction carefully. Yes, he is, Janelle agreed, keeping her face neutral as she signed the document. Is there something I should know, Janelle? Patricia asked bluntly. As HR director, I'm responsible for handling workplace relationships appropriately, Janelle met her gaze steadily. Mr. Kensington and I are exploring a personal relationship outside of work hours. This promotion and the agreement are to ensure that there's no conflict of interest or power imbalance. Patricia looked surprised at Janelle's honesty. I see. Well, everything seems to be in order from a policy standpoint. Your new position takes effect immediately. When Janelle returned to her desk, which would only be hers for a few more days until her new office was ready, she found a note from Graham. Dinner at my place on Saturday? I'll cook. Bring Micah. Gee, she texted him. Bakma will be there. What should I bring? His response came quickly. Just yourselves, I'll take care of everything. By Friday, everyone in the office knew about Janelle's promotion. The reactions were mixed. Some colleagues congratulated her sincerely, while others whispered behind her back. Karen was particularly cold, barely speaking to Janelle except when absolutely necessary. Don't let them get to you, Graham said when he noticed Janelle's distress. They'll adjust. Your work speaks for itself. Does it? Janelle asked quietly. Or did I just get this position because you have feelings for me? Graham looked hurt. You know that's not true. You've been doing this job already. just without the recognition or pay. But they don't know that, Janelle pointed out. They will, Graham assured her. Once they see you in action in your new role, no one will question why you got the position. Saturday, evening arrived, and Janelle found herself standing outside Graham's penthouse apartment with Micah, feeling nervous. She had dressed casually but nicely in jeans and a blue blouse that brought out her eyes. Micah was practically bouncing with excitement. "Is Mr. Graham's house big?" he asked as they rode the elevator to the top floor. "I imagine it is," Janelle said, smoothing down his curly hair one more time. "Remember your manners, okay?" "I will, Mommy." When Graham opened the door, Janelle was surprised to see him in jeans and a simple sweater, looking relaxed and younger than he did at the office. His penthouse was impressive, spacious and elegantly decorated, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city. "Welcome," Graham said, smiling broadly at both of them. "Come in." "Wow," Micah exclaimed, running to the windows. "We can see everything from here." "Micah, don't run," Janelle called automatically. "It's fine," Graham assured her. "I've child-proofed the place. The windows don't open and I've covered all the sharp corners on the furniture." Janelle looked at him in surprise. "You child-proofed your penthouse?" Graham shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. "I wanted Micah to be safe here." He led them further into the apartment. "I thought we'd eat in the kitchen. It's more casual." The kitchen was a chef's dream, all stainless steel and marble with top-of-the-line appliances. But Graham had transformed the usual coldness of such a space by setting the island with colorful plates and napkins. A booster seat had been attached to one of the stools, clearly meant for Micah. "You thought of everything," Janelle said, touched by his consideration. "I tried," Graham admitted. "I've never really had a child here before, so I wasn't sure what to do." "It's perfect," Janelle assured him. Dinner was surprisingly relaxed. Graham had made spaghetti and meatballs. Micah told me it was his favorite, and garlic bread. For dessert, he'd bought an ice cream cake from a famous local bakery. Throughout the meal, Janelle watched as Graham interacted with Micah, answering his endless questions and listening to his stories with genuine interest. At one point, Micah got spaghetti sauce all over his face, and Graham gently wiped it off with a napkin, his touch careful and kind. After dinner, Graham surprised them again by revealing a room off the living area that he had set up with toys and children's books. "I thought Micah might like a place to play," he explained as Micah ran excitedly to explore the new space. "Graham, this is too much," Janelle said, overwhelmed by the effort he had made. "Is it?" he asked, watching Micah play. "It feels right to me." While Micah was occupied with his new toys, Graham led Janelle to the balcony. The night air was cool, but not cold, and the city lights stretched out before them like stars. "I want you to know something," Graham said, his voice serious. "I know this is all happening very quickly. I know it's a risk for you to let me into your lives. I'm not taking that lightly." Janelle looked at him, really looked at him. Without the shield of his business persona, Graham Kensington was different, warmer, more vulnerable. His blue eyes held a sincerity that touched her. "Why us?" she asked softly. "You could have anyone, Graham. Why a single mother and her 5-year-old son?" Graham was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Before I met Micah." "Really met?" "Him, I mean, I was just going through the motions, work, sleep, more work. I thought that was all there was to life, success, achievement." He shook his head. "When Micah called me daddy that day, it was like waking up from a long sleep. I suddenly saw what was missing in my life." "And what was that?" Janelle asked. "Connection," Graham said simply. "Real human connection, the kind that can't be measured in dollars or business deals." He turned to face her. "Watching you with Micah, seeing the love between you, how you put him first always, it made me want to be part of something like that." "It's not always easy," Janelle warned him. "Being a parent is the hardest job in the world." "I don't expect it to be easy," Graham said, "but I think it would be worth it." He hesitated, then reached out and took her hand. "I'm not asking to be Micah's father, Janelle, not yet, but I'd like the chance to be in both your lives to see where this goes." Janelle looked down at their joined hands, feeling a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the mild evening air. "I'd like that too," she admitted softly. From inside they heard Micah call, "Mommy, Mr. Graham, come see what I built." Graham smiled. "Duty calls." As they walked back inside together, still holding hands, Janelle felt a sense of rightness that surprised her. Maybe this could work after all. The next few weeks fell into a new pattern. At work, Janelle adjusted to her new role, gradually earning the respect of her former peers as they saw her excel in her new responsibilities. Graham was careful to maintain a professional relationship with her in the office, though sometimes she would catch him watching her from across a conference room, a small smile playing on his lips. Outside of work, they spent more and more time together. Graham joined them for outings to the park, the zoo, and Micah's favorite pizza place. He never came empty-handed, always bringing a small gift for Micah. A book, a toy car, a dinosaur figure. Janelle wanted to tell him it wasn't necessary, but she couldn't deny the joy in Micah's face when Graham remembered something specific he had mentioned days earlier. One evening, after Micah had fallen asleep during a movie at Graham's penthouse, Graham carried him gently to the guest bedroom that was slowly becoming Micah's room, with dinosaur sheets and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. "He's out cold," Graham whispered, as he returned to the living room where Janelle sat on the couch. Today really tired him. Out. They had spent the day at a children's fair in the park, riding small rides and playing carnival games. Graham had won a giant stuffed dinosaur for Micah by knocking down bottles with a baseball, much to Micah's delight. "Thank you for today," Janelle said as Graham sat beside her on the couch. "He had a wonderful time." "So did I," Graham said, his eyes warm as they met hers. "Janelle, these past few weeks have been the happiest of my life." "Mine too," she admitted, surprised to realize how true it was. Despite her initial reservations, being with Graham felt natural now, as if he had always been part of their lives. Graham reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "May I kiss you?" he asked softly. Instead of answering, Janelle leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft and sweet, a promise of more to come. When they pulled apart, Graham was smiling. "I've wanted to do that since the museum," he confessed. "What took you so long?" Janelle teased. "I was afraid you'd run away," Graham said, only half joking. "I know how careful you are, especially when it comes to Micah." "I am," Janelle agreed. "But I trust you, Graham. I've seen how you are with him, how much you care." Graham took her hand, interlacing their fingers. "I care about both of you, more than I ever thought possible." They spent the rest of the evening talking quietly, sharing stories from their past, learning more about each other. Janelle told him about growing up in a small town, about her dreams of becoming a writer someday. Graham shared stories of his strict father and loving but overwhelmed mother, of building his company from the ground up after his father's death. It was nearly midnight when Janelle reluctantly said she should take Micah home. "Stay," Graham said, impulsively. "Both of you, it's late and Micah's already asleep. You can take my room and I'll sleep on the couch." Janelle hesitated. "I don't know, Graham. Micah might be confused if he wakes up here." "I have a better idea," Graham said. "Why don't you both stay in the guest room with Micah? The bed's plenty big enough." In the end, Janelle agreed. The thought of waking Micah and dragging him home on the subway so late didn't appeal to her. Graham found her a t-shirt to sleep in and showed her to the guest bathroom, which he had stocked with extra toothbrushes just in case. As Janelle crawled into bed beside her sleeping son, she marveled at how comfortable she felt in Graham's home. 3 months ago, she never would have imagined this scenario, sleeping in her boss's penthouse after spending the day with him at a fair. Life had a funny way of surprising you sometimes, she thought as she drifted off to sleep. And sometimes, those surprises turned out to be exactly what you needed. Micah woke up first, confused at finding himself in an unfamiliar room. He shook Janelle's shoulder gently. "Mommy? Where are we?" Janelle blinked awake, momentarily disoriented herself. "We're at Mr. Graham's house, sweetie. Remember we watched a movie last night? You fell asleep, so we stayed over." Micah's face lit up. "Is Mr. Graham still here?" Janelle smiled at his enthusiasm. Of course, this is his home. They found Graham in the kitchen, already dressed in jeans, and a casual shirt making pancakes. The domestic scene touched something deep in Janelle's heart. "Good morning," Graham said, smiling broadly when he saw them. "I hope you both slept well." "Your bed is super big," Micah announced, climbing onto a stool at the island, "and the stars on the ceiling glow in the dark." "I'm glad you like them," Graham said, placing a small pancake shaped like a dinosaur on a plate for Micah. "I thought you might." "You made dinosaur pancakes?" Micah asked in awe. "I did my best," Graham said with a wink at Janelle. "They might look more like blobs with legs, but we can pretend." Janelle accepted the coffee Graham offered her, watching as he interacted with Micah. There was something so natural about the way they were together, as if Graham had been around children all his life, instead of just the few weeks he'd known Micah. "I should get Micah home after breakfast," Janelle said. "He needs clean clothes and we have some errands to run." "Of course," Graham said, though he looked disappointed. "Maybe we could have dinner again tonight. I could come to your place this time." Janelle hesitated. Her apartment was tiny compared to Graham's penthouse, and she felt suddenly self-conscious about him seeing where they lived. "Or not," Graham said quickly, noticing her hesitation. "We could go out instead." "No, dinner at our place would be nice," Janelle decided. Micah had seen Graham's home. It was only fair that Graham see theirs. "But it's nothing fancy like this." "I don't care about fancy," Graham said sincerely. "I just want to spend time with you both." After breakfast, Graham insisted on driving them home rather than letting them take the subway. When they arrived at Janelle's modest apartment building, Graham didn't comment on the peeling paint in the hallway or the cramped elevator. He simply carried Micah's dinosaur prize from the fair and followed them to their door. "I'll see you both tonight," he said, kissing Janelle's cheek and giving Micah a high five. 6 o'clock? 6 is perfect, Janelle agreed. After Graham left, Janelle looked around her apartment with new eyes, seeing the worn furniture and limited space. It was clean and tidy, but there was no hiding the fact that it was a far cry from Graham's luxurious penthouse. "Why are you making that face, Mommy?" Micah asked, noticing her frown. "Just thinking about dinner tonight," Janelle admitted. "Our apartment is pretty small, isn't it?" Micah shrugged. "I like it. It's cozy." His simple acceptance made Janelle smile. Children didn't care about square footage or fancy appliances. Home was where they felt safe and loved. "You're right," she said, ruffling his hair. "It's perfect for us." At exactly 6 o'clock there was a knock at their door. Graham stood there with flowers for Janelle, a small gift bag for Micah, and grocery bags. "I thought I'd cook, if that's..." "Okay," he said, stepping inside. "Italian again. I'm afraid my culinary skills are pretty limited." "You didn't need to bring anything," Janelle said, accepting the flowers. "But thank you." Graham looked around the apartment with interest, but no judgment. "This is nice," he said. "It feels like a real home." Micah was already opening his gift, a new dinosaur book with 3D illustrations that popped up when you turned the pages. "Wow." "Thank you, Mr. Graham," he exclaimed, immediately sitting on the floor to explore the book. "You spoil him," Janelle said quietly to Graham as they moved to the small kitchen. "Is that so bad?" Graham asked, unpacking the groceries. "It sets expectations," Janelle explained. "I can't afford to buy him presents all the time." Graham stopped what he was doing and turned to face her. "I'm sorry, I didn't think about that. I like seeing him happy." "I know," Janelle sighed. "It's not that I don't appreciate your generosity, it's just that I don't want Micah to get used to things I can't provide on my own." Graham nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll be more mindful of that in the future." As they prepared dinner together in Janelle's tiny kitchen, bumping into each other in the limited space, Janelle was surprised by how comfortable it felt. Graham didn't seem bothered by the basic appliances or the lack of counter space. He just adapted, finding ways to work within the constraints. After dinner, they played a board game at the coffee table, all three of them sitting on the floor. Micah was delighted to beat both adults, and Graham feigned exaggerated disappointment at his loss, making Micah giggle. When it was time for Micah's bath, Graham helped clean up the dishes while Janelle got Micah ready for bed. As she tucked him in, Micah asked a question that caught her off guard. "Mommy, is Mr. Graham going to be my daddy someday?" Janelle froze. "Why do you ask that, sweetie?" "Because he does daddy things," Micah said simply. "He plays with me and reads to me and brings me presents. Tyler's daddy does those things." Janelle sat on the edge of Micah's bed trying to find the right words. "Mr. Graham cares about us very much, but I don't know if he'll be your daddy. That's a big decision that grown-ups have to make very carefully." "I want him to be," Micah said, hugging his stuffed dinosaur close. "He makes you smile a lot, just like in my dream." Janelle remembered Micah saying something similar weeks ago. "You've had more dreams about Mr. Graham." Micah nodded sleepily. "Lots of times. In my dreams, we all live together in a big house, and he reads me stories every night." Janelle kissed his forehead, her heart racing. "That sounds like a nice dream, honey. Now go to sleep. Mr. Graham will still be here in the morning." When she returned to the living room, Graham was sitting on the couch looking at a framed photo of Janelle and Micah at the beach last summer. "He's asleep?" Graham asked. "Almost," Janelle said, sitting beside him. He asked me something interesting." "Oh?" Graham turned to face her. "He asked if you were going to be his daddy someday." Graham's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't look as shocked as Janelle had expected. "What did you tell him?" "That I don't know. That it's a big decision." Janelle studied Graham's face. "You don't seem surprised by the question." Graham set the photo down carefully. "He asked me something similar at the museum that day. He said he wished I could be his daddy because his friend Tyler has one and it seemed nice. You never told me that," Janelle said, surprised. "I didn't want to make things more complicated than they already were," Graham admitted. "I told him that being a daddy is a very important job and that someday he would have someone who loved him like a father, whether it was me or someone else." "That was a good answer," Janelle said softly. "To be honest, the thought has crossed my mind," Graham said, taking her hand. "Not right away, of course, but eventually, if things continue to go well between us." Janelle felt a flutter of panic. "Graham, we've only been seeing each other for a few weeks." I know, he said quickly. "I'm not proposing or anything. I'm just saying that I can see a future with you and Micah. A real future." Janelle looked down at their joined hands. "It's scary how fast this is happening. Is it happening too fast?" Graham asked, concern in his voice. "We can slow down if you need to." Janelle thought about it. Yes, their relationship had progressed quickly, but it also felt right in a way that none of her previous relationships had. "No, it's not too fast," she decided. "It's just I need to be sure for Micah's sake he's already getting attached to you." "And I to him," Graham said sincerely. "Janelle, I want you to know that whatever happens between us, my feelings for Micah won't change. He's an amazing kid, and I'd never just walk away from him." The promise, spoken so earnestly, melted something in Janelle's heart. She leaned forward and kissed Graham softly. "Stay tonight," she whispered against his lips, "not on the couch with me." Graham's eyes darkened. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering, Janelle stood and took his hand, leading him toward her bedroom. In the morning, Janelle woke to find Graham already up, sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed. "Good morning," he said, smiling down at her. "I made coffee." Janelle sat up, pulling the sheet with her. "What time is it?" "Just after 7. I was about to wake you. I thought we might all have breakfast together before I need to head home to change for work." The domestic normalcy of the situation struck Janelle again. It felt so natural to wake up with Graham there, to know he had already made coffee and was thinking about breakfast with her and Micah. "That sounds perfect," she said, reaching for her robe. When Micah saw Graham at the breakfast table, his face lit up with a huge smile. "You're still here. Did you have a sleepover?" Janelle and Graham exchanged amused glances. "Something like that," Graham said. "I thought we could all have breakfast together before I have to go to work. Can you have sleepovers all the time?" Micah asked hopefully. "We'll see," Janelle said, ruffling his hair. "Now eat your cereal before it gets soggy." After Graham left for his apartment to change, promising to see Janelle at the office later, Micah looked at his mother seriously. "I like it when Mr. Graham is here in the morning," he stated. "Me too, sweetie," Janelle admitted, surprising herself with the truth of it. The next few weeks settled into a comfortable routine. Graham spent most evenings with them, either at Janelle's apartment or his penthouse. On weekends, they did family activities, the zoo, museums, parks, and once a trip to a nearby beach. Sometimes Graham stayed over at Janelle's, and sometimes she and Micah stayed at his place. They were becoming a family in all but name. At work, Janelle continued to excel in her new position. The initial gossip had died down as people saw her competence in the role. Even Karen had grudgingly acknowledged that Janelle was good at her job. The quarterly reports looked great, Graham told her one day in a meeting, keeping his tone professional despite the personal smile in his eyes. The board was impressed with your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Kensington, Janelle replied, equally professional, though she couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips. They had agreed to keep their relationship separate from work, as much as possible, which meant using formal titles and maintaining a professional distance in the office. Sometimes it was hard, especially when Janelle caught Graham watching her across a conference room with that particular look in his eyes that made her heart race. One evening, as they prepared dinner together in Graham's kitchen while Micah played, in his room, Graham broached a subject they had been dancing around for weeks. "I've been thinking," he said casually, chopping vegetables. "This penthouse is really too big for just me." "It is rather spacious," Janelle agreed, stirring the pasta sauce. "And your apartment, while lovely, is getting a bit small for you and—" "Micah, he'll need his own room soon." Janelle's hand stilled on the spoon. She knew where this was heading. "Graham, I'm not suggesting we buy a house together or anything," Graham said quickly. "Not yet anyway, but what if you and Micah moved in here? There's more than enough space, and Micah already loves it." Janelle bit her lip, considering. They were practically living together already, splitting their time between the two apartments. And Graham was right. Micah would need his own bedroom soon. He couldn't sleep in her room forever. "It's a big step," she said finally. "I know," Graham acknowledged, "but I think we're ready for it. Don't you?" Before Janelle could answer, the doorbell rang. Graham frowned, setting down his knife. "I'm not expecting anyone." He went to answer the door while Janelle continued stirring the sauce. A moment later, she heard raised voices from the entryway. Curious, she turned down the heat on the stove and went to investigate. Graham stood in the doorway, blocking someone from entering. All Janelle could see was a man's hand gesturing angrily. "This is not a good time," Graham was saying, his voice cold. "In fact, there is no good time. I told you on the phone I'm not interested. And I told you this is too important to discuss over the phone," came a male voice that sounded vaguely familiar to Janelle, though she couldn't place it. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Graham. At least hear me out." "Is everything okay?" Janelle asked, approaching. Graham turned, his expression tight with anger. "Everything's fine. Mr. Reynolds was just leaving." Reynolds, the name clicked in Janelle's mind. James Reynolds was the CEO of Reynolds Enterprises, one of Kensington's biggest competitors. She had spoken to him on the phone several times, but had never met him in person. "Miss Carter," Reynolds said, peering around Graham with surprise. "What a pleasant surprise." "You know each other?" Graham asked, looking between them. "We've spoken on the phone," Janelle explained. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm afraid this isn't a good time for a business discussion." Reynolds' eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. Janelle in casual clothes in Graham's penthouse, the smell of dinner cooking wafting from the kitchen. "I see. This is a personal visit." "That's none of your business," Graham said sharply. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have plans for the evening." "Daddy, who's at the door?" Micah's voice came from behind them. He had wandered out of his playroom, curious about the commotion. Reynolds' eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Daddy? Well, there seems to be quite a lot I don't know about you, Graham." Graham's jaw tightened, but he didn't correct Micah's use of the word daddy. Instead, he knelt down to Micah's level. "This is just a man who works at another company, buddy. He was just leaving. Why don't you go help your mom finish dinner?" Micah looked uncertain but nodded and went back to Janelle, who led him to the kitchen, glancing back worriedly at Graham. She could hear the men's voices, now lowered but still tense, as she and Micah sat at the table. "Who is that man, Mommy?" Micah asked. "Why does he look mad?" "He's someone who works at another company," Janelle explained simply. "He and Mr. Graham have some business to discuss, that's all." A few minutes later, Graham joined them in the kitchen, his expression still tight with anger. "Sorry about that. He's gone now." "What did he want?" Janelle asked quietly, as Micah returned to arranging the napkins perfectly on the table. "To make an offer to buy my company," Graham said, keeping his voice low so Micah wouldn't hear. "Again, I've already turned him down twice." "Oh," Janelle said, surprised. "I didn't know Reynolds was trying to acquire Kensington." "It's not common knowledge," Graham said, "and it's not going to happen. Kensington Enterprises is my life's work. I won't sell it, especially not to James Reynolds." Janelle nodded, understanding his position. "He seemed pretty determined." "He is," Graham agreed grimly. "But so am I." They managed to salvage the evening, focusing on Micah and putting the unpleasant encounter behind them. But later, after Micah was asleep, Janelle brought it up again. As they sat on the couch together, "Micah called you Daddy tonight," she said carefully. Graham looked at her, his expression a mix of emotions. "I know, it just slipped out, I think. We haven't talked about that, about what he should call me." "Does it bother you?" Janelle asked. "No," Graham said immediately. "Not at all. In fact," he hesitated, then continued. "In fact, it felt right. Natural. But I know it's not my place to decide that." Janelle took his hand. "He doesn't have a dad, Graham. He never has. And you've been more of a father to him in these few months than his biological father ever was. So you're okay with it." "If he calls me that sometimes?" Janelle nodded slowly. "I think so, but we should talk to him about it. Make sure he understands that these things take time, that relationships develop gradually." Graham squeezed her hand. "Thank you. That means more to me than you know." They sat in companionable silence for a while, Graham's arm around Janelle's shoulders, both lost in their own thoughts. "About what you asked earlier," Janelle said finally. "About moving in here." Graham turned to face her. "Yes, I think you're right. It makes sense for us all to be in one place, but I don't want to rush into it. Maybe we could start by bringing some of our things here, see how it goes for a few weeks before making it official." Graham's face lit up with a smile. "That sounds perfect. We can take it as slowly as you need." "And I want to contribute," Janelle added firmly. "I can't pay half the mortgage on a place like this, but I can pay for groceries and utilities. I need to know we're partners in this, Graham. Equal partners." "We are," Graham assured her, "in every way that matters." As they kissed, sealing their agreement, Janelle felt a sense of peace wash over her. This man, who had been just her demanding boss a few months ago, had become the center of her world alongside Micah. It was unexpected and a little frightening, but it also felt right in a way nothing else ever had. Little did they know, their newfound happiness was about to face its greatest test, because James Reynolds wasn't a man who took no for an answer, and he had seen something in Graham's penthouse that night that gave him a new angle to pursue in his quest to acquire Kensington. Enterprises, a vulnerability he hadn't known existed until now. A woman, a child, a family that Graham Kensington would do anything to protect. 2 days later, a courier delivered an envelope to Janelle's desk at work. Thinking it was work-related, she opened it immediately. Inside was a single photograph of her, Graham, and Micah at the beach the previous weekend, taken with a telephoto lens from a distance. On the back was a handwritten note. "Such a lovely family. It would be a shame if anything happened to disrupt it. Let's talk. J.R." Janelle's blood ran cold. It wasn't just a photograph, it was a threat. One that targeted not just her, but the two people she loved most in the world. Janelle's hands trembled as she stared at the photograph. The Huey image was clear. Graham building a sandcastle with Micah while she watched them smiling. A private family moment that someone had observed without their knowledge. The implied threat in the note made her stomach churn with fear. She didn't hesitate. Taking the envelope and photo, she went straight to Graham's office, not bothering to knock before entering. "I need to talk to you," she said, closing the door behind her. "Now?" Graham looked up from his computer, his expression changing from surprise to concern when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" Wordlessly, Janelle placed the photograph and note on his desk. Graham looked at them, his face darkening with anger as he read Reynolds' message. "That son of a..." He stopped himself, taking a deep breath. When did you get this? Just. Tower Courier delivered it to my desk. Graham stood up, pacing the office. This is crossing a line, taking pictures of us, of Micah, making veiled threats. He picked up his phone. I'm calling my lawyer right now. Graham, wait, Janelle said, placing her hand on his arm. What exactly is going on with Reynolds? Why is he so determined to buy your company? Graham set the phone down, running a hand through his hair in frustration. It's complicated. Reynolds Enterprises has been trying to corner the market in our industry. They've already bought out 3 of our competitors in the last 2 years. I'm the last major independent company standing in their way. And you don't want to sell? No, Graham said firmly. My father built this company from nothing. I've spent my entire career making it stronger, better. It's not just a business. To me, Janelle, it's my legacy. Janelle nodded, understanding. So what do we do about this? She pointed to the photograph. First, we call security and find out how this was delivered and who signed for it, Graham said, his CEO persona taking over. Then we contact my lawyer. This is harassment and intimidation, possibly even stalking. Reynolds has crossed a legal line. But before Graham could make the call, his assistant buzzed through on the intercom. Mr. Kensington, James Reynolds is on line 1. He says it's urgent. Graham and Janelle exchanged a look. Put him through, Graham said tightly. He put the call on speaker so Janelle could hear. Reynolds, Graham said coldly when the line connected. Graham, glad I caught you. James Reynolds' smooth voice came through the speaker. Have you had a chance to reconsider my offer? Cut the act, Reynolds. What kind of game are you playing? Sending photographs and threats to Ms. Carter? There was a pause. I prefer to think of it as a reminder of what's really important in life, Graham. Family, love, security, things that can be fragile. Graham's knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of his desk. If you ever come near my family again— Your family? Reynolds interrupted. How interesting. From what I understand, you're not married to Ms. Carter, and you're certainly not that boy's father. Not legally, anyway. That's none of your business, Graham growled. Perhaps not, Reynolds conceded. But here's what is my business. I've just acquired a controlling interest in Westfield Communications. Graham stiffened. Westfield was Kensington Enterprises' largest client, accounting for nearly 30% of their annual revenue. You're bluffing, Graham said, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. Am I? Check the morning stock market report. The deal closed yesterday afternoon. Reynolds' voice was smooth with satisfaction. And as the new majority owner, I'll be reevaluating all of Westfield's vendor relationships, including their contract with Kensington. Janelle watched the color drain from Graham's face. Losing the Westfield account would be devastating for the company. You wouldn't— Oh, but I would, Reynolds interrupted. Business is business, after all. However, I'm a reasonable man. If you were to reconsider my offer for Kensington Enterprises, I might be persuaded to maintain Westfield's current contracts. That's blackmail, Graham said through gritted teeth. No, that's negotiation, Reynolds corrected. Think it over, Graham. You have until Friday to give me your answer. And give my regards to your lovely family. The line went dead, leaving Graham and Janelle staring at the phone. Can he really do that? Janelle asked. Cancel the Westfield contract just like that? Graham nodded grimly. If he has a controlling interest, yes, he could direct them to take their business elsewhere. He sank into his chair, looking suddenly tired. Losing Westfield would mean layoffs, possibly significant ones. We'd survive, but it would hurt a lot of people. And if you sell to Reynolds, he'd probably strip the company for parts, merge some divisions with his existing operations, and shut down the rest, Graham said bitterly. Either way, people lose their jobs. Janelle sat down across from him. What are you going to do? Graham looked at the photograph still lying on his desk, the image of him with Janelle and Micah looking like a perfect family. I don't know, he admitted. For the first time in my career, I genuinely don't know. That evening, Graham was unusually quiet as they had dinner at his penthouse. Micah chattered happily about his day at school, unaware of the tension between the adults. After Micah was asleep, Graham poured himself a rare glass of whiskey and joined Janelle on the balcony. The city lights twinkled below them, a beautiful sight that neither of them was really seeing. I could fight him, Graham said finally, breaking the silence. challenge the legality of his tactics, maybe find another investor to counter his offer for Westfield. Would that work? Janelle asked. Graham shrugged. Maybe. Business is full of risks, but a legal battle could take years, and in the meantime, Reynolds could do a lot of damage. And selling the company? Is that really the worst option? Graham took a sip of his whiskey, his face grim. From a purely business perspective, it might actually be the smart move. Reynolds is offering well above market value. The shareholders would be thrilled. I'd walk away with enough money to never work again. But it feels like giving up, Graham said, frustration evident in his voice, like letting Reynolds win. And what about our employees? Some of them have been with Kensington for decades. Janelle placed her hand over his. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. We'll face it together. Graham looked at her, his expression softening. I've been in business for 20 years, Janelle. I've faced tough decisions, hostile takeovers, market crashes, but nothing has ever felt as important as what we're building here, you, me, and Micah. For the first time in my life, my company isn't the most important thing to me. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe it's time for a change, Graham said slowly, as if working through his thoughts out loud. Maybe losing Kensington wouldn't be the end of the world if it means protecting what we have. Janelle squeezed his hand. Don't make any decisions tonight. Let's sleep on it. The next morning, Graham was up early, dressed in his business suit before Janelle even woke up. Where are you going so early? She asked, finding him in the kitchen, baking coffee. I had an idea in the middle of the night, Graham said, an energy in his voice that hadn't been there the evening before. I need to talk to my lawyers and the board, but first I wanted to ask you something. Janelle leaned against the counter, still in her pajamas. What is it? Graham set down his coffee cup and took both her hands in his. How would you feel about moving? To a different city, I mean. The question caught her off guard. Moving? Why? Just answer the question, please, Graham said, his eyes intense. Would you and Micah be willing to move somewhere else with me if it meant a fresh start? Janelle thought about it. Her life was here. Micah's school, Mrs. Jenkins, her job. But then again, her job was at Kensington, which might not exist much longer. And really her life was wherever Graham and Micah were now. Yes, she said finally. If that's what we needed to do, we would move with you. Graham's face broke into a broad smile. That's what I hoped you'd say. He kissed her quickly. I have to go, but I'll explain everything tonight, I promise. Before Janelle could ask more questions, Graham was gone, leaving her confused but intrigued by the sudden change in his demeanor. That day at work, there was a buzz of activity around Graham's office. Board members arrived for an emergency meeting, followed by the company's legal team. Janelle, in her role as Director of Executive Communications, was kept busy fielding questions from concerned executives who had heard rumors about the Westfield situation. What's going on? Karen asked, stopping by Janelle's office. Their relationship had improved somewhat in recent months, though there was still an underlying tension. The whole executive floor is in panic mode. I wish I knew, Janelle said honestly. All I've heard is that Reynolds has acquired Westfield Communications. Karen's eyes widened. That's bad news. Westfield is our biggest client. I know, Janelle said grimly. Just then, Graham's assistant appeared at Janelle's door. Ms. Carter, Mr. Kensington would like you to join the board meeting immediately. Surprised, Janelle gathered her tablet and followed the assistant to the large conference room. Inside, Graham sat at the head of the table, surrounded by board members and lawyers. All eyes turned to her as she entered. Ms. Carter, Graham said formally. Thank you for joining us. We were just discussing a proposal I've put forward to the board, and I wanted you to be part of this conversation. Janelle took the empty seat nearest the door, feeling out of place among the senior executives. As I was saying, Graham continued, addressing the room, the offer from Reynolds Enterprises comes at a critical juncture for Kensington. With the Westfield situation, we're facing serious revenue challenges in the coming year. The board members nodded grimly. One of them, an older man named Richard Jenkins, spoke up. Graham, we understand your emotional attachment to the company, but from a purely financial standpoint, Reynolds' offer is extremely generous. The shareholders would see a significant return. I agree, Graham said, surprising everyone. Which is why I'm not opposed to selling, but not to Reynolds and not the entire company. Murmurs broke out around the table. Graham raised a hand for silence. What I'm proposing is this. We spin off the East Coast operations as a separate entity, Kensington East. That division, which includes the Westfield account, would be sold to Reynolds. Meanwhile, we take the capital from that sale and reinvest it in our West Coast and international divisions, which would remain under our control as Kensington International. And you would relocate the headquarters? Another board member asked. Graham nodded. To Seattle. We already have a substantial operation there and the tech talent pool is excellent. I believe we could rebuild and eventually exceed our current market position within 3 to 5 years. The room erupted in discussion. Janelle watched, amazed at Graham's strategic thinking. He hadn't given up at all. He'd found a third option, a way to outmaneuver Reynolds while still protecting as many jobs as possible. There's one more thing, Graham said, waiting for the room to quiet again. This plan would require a significant restructuring of our leadership team. If the board approves, I'd like to announce a new executive team today, including Ms. Carter as our new Chief Communications Officer. Janelle's eyes widened in surprise. Chief Communications Officer was a senior executive position, several levels above her current role. In addition, Graham continued, I'd like to promote Thomas Chen to Chief Operating Officer and Maria Rodriguez to Chief Financial Officer. Both have extensive West Coast experience and would be instrumental in the transition. The board members looked at each other, considering the proposal. Richard Jenkins spoke first. It's an unorthodox approach, Graham, but I have to admit it has merit. Reynolds gets what he wants, access to the Westfield relationship, while we preserve the core of our business and most of our jobs. We'd need to move quickly, another board member cautioned. If Reynolds gets wind of this before the paperwork is signed. That's why I've already had the legal team prepare all the necessary documents, Graham said, nodding to the lawyers at the end of the table. We can announce the spin-off and sale this afternoon if the board approves. After an hour of intense discussion and questioning, the board called for a vote. To Janelle's relief, the plan was approved unanimously. As the board members filed out, Graham approached her with a smile. What do you think, Chief Communications Officer Carter? He asked quietly, so only she could hear. I think you're brilliant, Janelle said honestly. But why didn't you tell me about any of this last night? Because I needed to be sure the board would go for it before I got your hopes up, Graham explained. And I wanted your genuine reaction in the meeting, was I right? About Seattle? Janelle nodded slowly. Yes, Micah and I will go wherever you go. But do you really think Reynolds will accept just the East Coast division? He wants Westfield and he wants to hurt me, Graham said grimly. This gives him both in a way. He gets the client he wants and he forces me out of New York. But what he doesn't understand is that I'm not my father. My company isn't my whole life anymore. He took her hand, squeezing it gently. You and Micah are. That evening, Graham made the call to James Reynolds himself, with Janelle by his side. He put it on speaker so she could hear. Reynolds, Graham said when the call connected, I've considered your offer. And? Reynolds sounded smug, clearly expecting a full surrender. I have a counter-proposal, Graham said. You get Kensington East, which includes the Westfield account. I keep the rest and relocate to Seattle. There was a pause. That's not what I offered, Graham. It's what I'm willing to sell, Graham replied firmly. And considering that the board has already approved this plan and we're prepared to announce it publicly tomorrow morning, it's your only option if you want Westfield. Another pause, longer this time. You're bluffing. Check your email. I've just sent over the term sheet approved by our board. We're prepared to close within 30 days. They could almost hear Reynolds' mind working, calculating his options. Finally, he spoke. This isn't over, Graham. Actually, it is, Graham said confidently. You get what you really wanted, Westfield. And I get to keep building something new. We both win. Unless you'd prefer I take this deal to Warner Media instead. I understand they've been looking to expand their East Coast presence. The mention of his biggest competitor seemed to settle the matter for Reynolds. Fine. My lawyers will review the terms, but Graham? Yes? Seattle is a long way from New York. I hope your family is prepared for such a big change." Graham looked at Janelle, his eyes full of love and determination. "We're looking forward to it, actually. A fresh start together." After hanging up, Graham pulled Janelle into a tight embrace. "We did it," he whispered against her hair. "We found a way out." "I'm so proud of you," Janelle said, her voice thick with emotion. "You didn't give up. You fought for what matters." Graham pulled back to look at her. "Which brings me to one more important question. One I've been wanting to ask for a while now." Janelle's heart skipped a beat as Graham reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He dropped to one knee, looking up at her with eyes full of love. "Janelle Carter, these past months have been the happiest of my life. You and Micah have shown me what really matters, what makes life worth living. I want to build a future with both of you in Seattle or anywhere else our journey takes us." He opened the box, revealing a beautiful diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled Janelle's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course I will." Graham slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and kissed her deeply. When they finally pulled apart, Janelle saw movement from the hallway. "Micah?" she called. "Is that you?" Micah peeked around the corner, his eyes wide. "Are you and Mr. Graham getting married?" he asked, having clearly overheard at least part of the proposal. Graham knelt down, opening his arms to the boy. "If that's okay with you, buddy, I'd like to be your dad, officially." Micah ran to them, throwing his arms around Graham's neck. "Yes, I knew it, just like in my dreams." Janelle joined the embrace, holding the two people she loved most in the world. "What is it about your dreams, Micah?" she asked curiously. "You've mentioned them before." Micah looked up at them, his face serious. "In my dreams, we're always together. You, me, and Daddy. We're a real family, and now we're going to be." Graham lifted Micah up with one arm, keeping his other arm around Janelle. "We already are a family, Micah. The paperwork just needs to catch up." "When will we go to Seattle?" Micah asked excitedly. "Will I get my own room? Can we get a dog?" Graham and Janelle laughed at his enthusiasm. "Yes, to your own room," Janelle said. "We'll discuss the dog situation later." "We'll find a beautiful house with a yard," Graham promised, "and we'll make it a real home together." That night, after Micah was asleep, Graham and Janelle stood on the balcony of his penthouse, looking out at the New York skyline one last time. In a few weeks, they would be leaving for Seattle to start their new life. "Are you sure about all this?" Janelle asked, looking down at her engagement ring, still feeling its unfamiliar weight on her finger. "Selling half your company, moving across the country, taking on an instant family." Graham turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. When Micah called me Daddy that first day in my office, something changed in me. It was like he saw something in me that I didn't even know was there." "He has a way of seeing right to the heart of people," Janelle said softly. "From that moment on, nothing has been the same," Graham continued, "and I don't want it to go back to the way it was before. My life was empty, Janelle. Successful, yes, but hollow. You and Micah filled it with something real." Janelle leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. "I never expected any of this, you know. When my babysitter canceled that day, and I had to bring Micah to work, I was terrified you'd fire me on the spot. Instead, he hired me," Graham said with a chuckle, "hired me for the most important job I'll ever have, being a husband and father. And I've never seen a more perfect candidate for the position," Janelle said, tilting her face up to kiss him. 3 months later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon in Seattle, Janelle walked down the aisle in the garden of their new home. Micah preceded her, carefully carrying the rings on a small pillow, his face solemn with the importance of his task. Graham waited under an arch covered in flowers, his eyes filling with tears as he saw his bride approaching. Their new neighbors and colleagues from Kensington International filled the rows of chairs, along with a few close friends who had made the trip from New York. Mrs. Jenkins was there too, having accepted their invitation to move to Seattle with them to continue caring for Micah. "At my age, a change of scenery is just what I need," she had said, when they offered to set her up in a comfortable apartment near their new home. As Janelle reached Graham, Micah stepped forward and took both their hands, just as he had that day at the museum so many months ago. This time, though, it wasn't by chance or coincidence. It was a planned part of their ceremony, a symbol of the family they had become. "Today, I'm not just marrying Janelle," Graham said in his vows, his voice clear and strong. "I'm making a promise to both of you, to be the husband and father you deserve, to put our family first always." Janelle squeezed both their hands, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "Who would have thought," she said, smiling through her tears, "that one little boy's hug and one whispered word could change all our lives forever?" As they shared their first kiss as husband and wife, Micah cheered loudly, making all the guests laugh. And when they walked back down the aisle together, all three of them hand in hand, Janelle knew without a doubt that this was exactly where they were meant to be. Sometimes love doesn't come in grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with a single hug, a whispered word, and the courage to open your heart to a second chance at love.